Hi Jason.
Hey, Carl.
Right, thanks for coming along today and doing this PDI podcast with me. As I introduced this on most occasions, the reason for doing these is for anybody listening today who's coming up to doing their part 3.
Yeah.
They might gain some knowledge and some information to help them with theirs. Congratulations for passing your part 3 test.
Thank you.
So our viewers know about the test. You passed it first time.
Yes, correct.
And first attempt in Ipswich.
Yeah, that's the one.
Excellent, well done. So leading up to your part 3 then, what did you do? What did you do to prepare for it?
So I made sure I'd driven my areas where I'd had the plans. So obviously we spoke together, came up with at least 4 plans, didn't we? And A, B, C and D. And I made sure I'd driven the roads of each plan, so I knew exactly where I was going. Whenever something happened on the part 3, I knew I had that plan in place, so I didn't have to have a little panic moment and try and come up with something on the spot. It was all pre-planned and well prepared with the help of my trainer.
Oh, excellent. So let's just talk a little bit about the test day then. So you've done a bit of planning before.
Yep.
And how did that plan work out for you?
So it pretty much changed immediately. We didn't get anywhere near doing the plan we'd foresaw, I suppose. So I told Faye, who was my examiner, what we were planning to do, and straight away, first roundabout, we adapted it. So it wasn't straightforward. So having those extra plans in place really helped.
So what sort of experience did your pupil have? What people did you choose, and what topic did you choose?
So I think I was quite brave with the pupil I chose. I went for someone partly trained 16 hours, so I knew there was going to be scope for adaptations because it was likely she was going to make a mistake. So I'd say making sure you go with someone, knowing them quite well, planning it a few weeks ahead with them, not necessarily telling them about it, but when you're out on lessons with them, recording their common mistakes so you can plan for them. That was a big help because I knew what was likely to come up, so I could have those plans in place for that pupil.
So what happened in the test then, in the session itself? You talked about having to make some adaptations.
Yeah.
And you obviously went off your original plan. So it's great that you weren't goal focused on that plan alone, and that you had thought about the needs of your pupil. So just for our listeners' benefit, obviously I'm not expecting you to tell me about the whole 40 minutes, but what kind of things cropped up that you had to deal with?
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing was a straddle of the lanes on a roundabout. So that was the first fault that kept us in the test centre area. And I'd say pretty quickly, my pupil was getting quite nervous because obviously it's the first time they're experiencing an examiner. So I had to help her out with that. I was really polite to her, really nice and reassuring, and gave her the chance to have a breath. So we did pull up more than once, which I was a bit nervous about, but was the right call in the end, and the examiner was quite gave me a lot of praise about it, I'd say. So mainly it was being client-centred, making sure the pupil was okay.
So it's just picking up on all the needs that you identified. So you're talking about the needs, and something you mentioned there is about your pupil. They were quite nervous about the examiner being in the car.
Yeah,
did you see a change in your pupil compared to what you'd normally see?
Oh yeah, massive. Yeah, everything was going wrong. Everything that could go wrong. Yeah. All of her previous faults started coming back in, so that's why it was important to get to know those faults for those weeks prior, because they're the ones that came straight back in. Like the straddling, the cutting a corner here and there, all those things that we had rectified all came flooding back once you got under the pressure. So
yeah, it's quite a common thing, I think, and this is probably a really important thing to make clear to any listeners, that if you think you've got a pupil that's going to be doing really well on the day, expect the fact that they're going to be doing really bad on the day.
Yeah,
because, like you say, that pressure, it's not their test, but again, they probably feel it for you, don't they? Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
So how many adaptations, how many needs do you think you recognised on that session that you had to sort out in total then?
Sure. It was pretty non-stop. I'd say at least 6 definite agreed focuses were made.
Yeah.
Most of those were on the go, and so about 3 or 4 I'd say we identified on the go, dealt with as we're moving, and there was one pull-up where we identified a few in a bit more detail because they're a bit more serious. So definitely I'd say we're definitely above 6, maybe between 6 and 10 came up.
So it sounds like your pupil worked you really hard on your session then.
Yeah, definitely. You had to be really on the ball the whole time. You couldn't drop it for a moment. Even when you pull up, you've got to be, focused on what's going on around you. You can't get in anyone's way and stuff like that. So it was a lot of pressure, and it was hard to you don't let your pupil see that pressure because they'll get more nervous, won't they? So that was a challenge in itself, trying to make sure they knew I was confident. And I think that came across the examiner, that they could see that I was putting my pupil first. She knew I was nervous, but I could put that to one side to help the pupil out.
Excellent. So the see it, say it, sort it. Do you think you saw everything, said everything and sorted it? Do you think you missed anything?
I definitely missed some bits, yeah. It was hard to know what I'd missed until the examiner helped me out with it, to be honest. But I missed some reference points because I was so focused on the fault itself and correcting it initially, but there were some bits I could have gone into more detail where I could have, I'm not sure if it was the pressure got to me or if I just hadn't built that into my plan enough going into it, but yeah, there was definitely some things I missed off. So
okay, yeah, I mean, look, what is perfection, and as we go into these things, the expectation isn't for us to be perfect, but just to be client-centered, offer value for money, keep the car safe, and make sure learning takes place. And clearly that happened on your session, because you were able to pass this first time. Well done. So on that session, is there anything that you would have done differently then, looking back? Now you've had time to reflect perhaps on your past?
Yeah, now I've had some reflection time. It was definitely the knowing when to go into more detail. So I got it in all the most points, but there were like the giving her the reference points, missing out on that was just because I think I felt so rushed in some ways that I was trying to get all those 17 competencies in that I allowed some of them to slip out of my head. So maybe some more preparation could have been done in definitely learning all of those 17 competencies so you know them all, and then you're less likely to miss them out if you've got them all there ready to go. You know exactly what's expected of you because it's all there in your training modules. Making sure you know them back to front would have been something I could have delved into a bit more there, and that would have helped me out, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think that advice is very good. And yeah, absolutely. Knowing what's expected from the examiner, and there is an ADI1 document that we can all access, and they are guidelines for the examiners when they're assessing us on these tests. But if we kind of understand what they're looking for, we know what to deliver. I agree with you totally. So lastly then, any advice that you'd give any one of our listeners that has maybe got a part 3 pending, or they're starting to think to prepare for it? Any advice that you would give them right now?
Yeah, I'd say be brave with your pupil choice. Sometimes playing it too safe and having too much of a plan can feel like the way to go. So someone that's almost test ready might be tempting, but I think having that pupil that really needed development gave me so many opportunities to bring that development out and show my skills, where going on the safer side might have actually made it more challenging in some ways. So just being confident about it, confident in your abilities, and when you're coming to your training sessions, being honest about what you need to focus on, because the trainers will help you as long as you tell them what it is you're struggling with and you give yourself that time to reflect. So it's tempting to work loads and loads and do tons of hours, but the important part is that reflection time after your lessons, and that time with your trainer is far more valuable in some ways than doing 40 plus hours of training.
Fantastic. Okay, great. No, thank you. Well, hopefully that gives our listeners an insight in how they could possibly go forward and, like yourself, be successful at their part 3 on their first attempt.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming in today, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you.